Raider Nation, we did it. Finally made it to training camp week. We'll give you everything you need to know about the offense, plus some roster moves. That plus more on Monday's edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast for July 21st, 2025.
You are Locked On Raiders, your daily Las Vegas Raiders podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome in, Raider Nation, to another edition of the Locked On Raiders podcast. Thank you so much for making the show your first listen of the day. We definitely appreciate you. If you're catching the show wherever you find your favorite podcast or you're checking us out by way of the YouTube page, you know we appreciate that as well. The show continues to grow each and every day because of your consistent support. And as always, the great job that my man Ari does behind the scenes, making sure we look good and sound good each and every day. We shout him out. We appreciate him. He's on Twitter at Ari Produces. You can hit me up as well at your boy Q254. And if you want to be a part of the show, as many of you do, got the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line at 707-654-4693. A lot of calls, great feedback, calls and texts we'll get to as we close out the show today. Segment number 3, we'll hear from you. A lot of great subjects that we've been talking about, and even things we haven't talked about, you'll touch on in segment number 3. Segment number 2, it was a few weeks back that I had someone reach out and say, hey, man, can you give us a little bit of a preview of what Chip Kelly's offense, what to expect from a Chip Kelly-led offense? Well, it just so happens that on Friday on my radio show, Unnecessary Roughness, on Raider Nation Radio 920, I had Jared Smith from Fox Sports Radio, BetMGM as well, does a fantastic job with film breakdown and did a really good YouTube on Chip Kelly's offense and what to expect. So as I saw that, I thought, hey, I might as well bring this to the show and give you a little bit of preview since it is training camp week, kind of what to expect. We talked a lot about Geno Smith. We talked a lot about Ashton Jeanty. We talked a lot about the weapons and how the offense could be a lot better. Well, Jared believes the Raiders offense is going to be big time better than it was in 2024. And let's be honest, it needs to be, but he'll tell you why. You'll hear that conversation I had with him on Friday. You'll hear that coming up in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Here in segment number 1, news and notes of the day. And it really just has to do with a roster move that the Raiders made official on Friday. We'll jump right into that after I tell you about the title sponsor of this show, and that's FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So on Friday, the Raiders made it official with Christian Wilkins. Not that it was a big surprise. It was what my gut feeling has been all along. I've been saying multiple times I thought that he was going to start out on the PUP list, physically unable to perform list when it comes to training camp. I wasn't reporting that. Again, it was just my gut feeling. Well, on Friday, it became official like a referee's whistle. The Raiders tweeted out, placed defensive tackle Christian Wilkins on the physically unable to perform list. So he's on the list ahead of camp. Now, the thing about it is, the Raiders can remove him from that PUP list anytime they want before the regular season. So anytime during camp, if he starts to heal up or if he is healed up and they feel like he's good to go as far as action, then he can be taken and activated off the PUP list. That's all good, right? So that's not the problem. Now, the big issue is if he remains on the PUP list after roster cut day, then he'll miss at least the first 4 games of the season. And that's what you don't want. So him starting out training camp on the PUP list, nothing to see here. Not a big deal. Obviously, they're going to slow play him and bring him along slowly like they have been, right? It's, again, something Pete Carroll has talked about as frustrating. It's been a difficult injury to overcome. Clearly, he had a setback, minor or whatever the case may be, had a little bit of a setback. So we know he's going to miss time in training camp. We don't know as of right now. We'll talk to Pete Carroll on Tuesday when the veterans report. He'll be the only guy that's made available, so we'll talk to him. I'm not too sure what time yet, but of course, Christian Wilkins and how close is he will be one of the big subjects that we talk to head coach Pete Carroll about. But he's officially on the PUP list. He could be activated anytime in training camp. But again, if he remains on the PUP list after roster cut day, he'll have to miss at least the first 4 games of the season. I don't believe that that's the plan, to have him miss the first 4 games, but I would not be shocked at all to see him miss a game or 2 when the season starts. Again, not reporting that, just a gut feeling with the way that this has been slow played when it comes to Christian Wilkins rehabbing. So what does that mean moving forward? We know he's going to miss some training camp time. Now you look at the depth chart right now for the Raiders. Adam Butler, they re-signed him. He's the 8-year vet. Leaky Fotu, he's a 6-year vet. He's on the roster as well. Zach Carter, been in the league 4 years. And then Jonah Laulu, 2-year vet. So those guys have some skins on the wall. Those guys have been there, done that. Those guys are the ones that know how it is to get done, right? Those are the guys that you look at first to be able to fill that void for Christian Wilkins, who's now on the PUP list, and especially if it goes into the regular season. Those will probably be the guys that they lean on immediately and early to try to fill that void of the big fella, Christian Wilkins. And then you continue on. They have some rookies. They added some rookies through the draft. They added some rookies through undrafted free agent, but they made sure that they had some guys in the mix. So actually the defensive tackle room, and I know Christian Wilkins is a big deal, the defensive tackle room is pretty deep. Tank Booker out of SMU, he was signed as an undrafted free agent. Tonka Hemingway out of South Carolina, he was a draft pick, same as J.J. Pegues out of Ole Miss. They were all draft picks, guys that I'm paying attention to in camp when camp opens up, because I do think that they're going to be relied on at some point. They're going to get their numbers called. I'm not saying it's going to be right when the season starts, but some point in the season, I think that they're going to be needed. Trevin May, the defensive tackle out of Baylor, he was also signed as an undrafted free agent. Laki Tasi, international gateway player, so he doesn't count against the roster. He's just a big fella. I think that they're going to try him everywhere throughout camp, right? Defensive tackle, offensive line. Like, I don't know where they're going to put this guy, but he is such a big dude. And again, part of the international gateway program, so he doesn't count against the 90-man roster that's in training camp. So that's fine. That's good that they can use him for experiments, for experimental purposes, right, to see where he fits best. And then finally, one guy that I'll pay attention to somewhat fill that void that is left by Christian Wilkins is a third-year vet, Tyree Wilson. Obviously, he was a number 7 overall pick out of Texas Tech. He's a defensive end, but we know that he's got the size and he's got the strength to play inside and out. It's been something that we've talked about quite a bit. Even last year when we were talking about the NASCAR package that the New York Giants made so popular, he could be a guy that plays on the inside role. Now, he's not the size of a defensive tackle, but he's a big fella that they can line up over the center and get an advantage of. So I would not be surprised to see Tyree Wilson kind of bounce outside, inside, out. At first, and this was not too long ago, matter of fact, going back to mandatory minicamp, I thought that they were just going to try to master one position with Tyree Wilson, but he let it be known when we met with them after one of the practice sessions during mandatory minicamp that there's a chance that you'll see him in multiple positions. He's been working on both. He's been working on his technique, his size, his speed, his strength, all that. So this is a big year for Tyree Wilson, former first-round pick. He's got to show his worth to the team, and maybe that's the way that he's going to do it. Maybe he's going to have to play a little outside, play a little inside, but those are the guys right now that the Raiders have to fill the void of Christian Wilkins, who's still rehabbing from that Jones fracture that he suffered week 5 in the 2024 season and still is not ready to come back. But again, it's not a big surprise that they put him on the PUP list. I think it was more of a matter of when as opposed to if, right? Just kind of the way that the offseason felt and the way that OTAs and mandatory minicamp was going, it kind of felt like, yeah, this is what's going to be the inevitable for this guy. Again, the biggest thing with him, though, is just we hope that he's activated off that PUP list before training camp in the preseason is over, before they get down to roster cut day, because then he can come back immediately. But again, the biggest key, if they do it and put him on and he stays on the PUP list after roster cut day, then you know he's going to be out for the first 4 games of the season. And I think that the Raiders need to have as many guys as possible fully healthy. You don't want to start the season off with guys missing, guys down. Even if they are going to return after a handful of weeks, whatever the case may be, you still want to have your full roster intact when the season starts. That's when you're going to be the healthiest, right? And last year, we saw what happened with the defense. Malcolm Kuntz went down in the preseason. He tore his ACL, so he was out for the year, and it just seemed like a snowball effect. Max Crosby got injured week 2 versus Baltimore. He was never the same until he eventually got shut down. Jacorian Bennett got injured quickly. Christian Wilkins, who we're talking about, went down in week 5. So it was just, like I said, it became a big snowball effect. You want to have all your guys healthy as possible when the season starts. So that's the roster moves that have been made so far. Those are the guys that are in line to fill that void of Christian Wilkins. Now let's focus in on the Raiders offense because, well, Chip Kelly is the OC, right? Remember last year at this time, we were talking about Luke Getsy, and was he the problem in Chicago or was it the personnel? Well, clearly it ended up being Getsy was a problem. The personnel I'd agree with is a problem in Chicago as well, but Luke Getsy just was not a very good offensive coordinator, as we found out pretty quickly when he got fired. So coming up next, what to expect from a Chip Kelly ran offense. Jared Smith from Fox Sports Radio, he'll tell you next in segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you about a couple great sponsors here on the Locked On Raiders podcast, including the title sponsor, which is FanDuel. Summer sports are in full swing, and whether you're all about baseball under the lights, golf on the green, or high-stakes soccer action, FanDuel is the best way to make every game even more excited. You're already following the action. Why not make it a little bit more thrilling, right? With FanDuel, you can get in on the game while your friends are getting sunburned at the beach. You can use FanDuel to track your favorite matchups. The app keeps it fresh with new daily promotions and makes it fun to bet and gives you fun ways to bet. It's easy to use, fast to pay out, and makes even regular season games feel like must-watch events. You can place a same-game parlay or watch a bet right into the ninth inning. FanDuel makes it feel like you're part of the action at all time. If you're new to FanDuel, new customers can bet just $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if your first bet wins. Open up the FanDuel app today or visit FanDuel.com to get started. This is an ad by Betterhelp. Workplace stress is at an all-time high. 61% of the global workforce is reporting higher than normal stress levels. This summer is the perfect time to take small steps to focus on your wellness and manage the challenges that come with your workday. Of course, most of us can't just quit our jobs or take endless vacations, but we can start small. Whether it's getting outside for a few minutes, adding movement into your day, or talking to someone who can help you navigate life's challenge. That's where BetterHelp comes in. Therapy can help you set healthier boundaries at work. Stress doesn't spill over into the rest of your life. That is not what you want. And you know, anyone with a busy schedule is going to have to try to figure out how to work everything into their busy schedule on the daily. That also provides you with a level of stress. Well, that's where the flexibility of online therapy, it makes it easy to fit sessions into a busy schedule no matter where you are. As the largest online therapy provider in the world, BetterHelp can provide access to mental health professionals with a diverse variety of expertise. Unwind from work with BetterHelp. All listeners of the Locked On Raiders podcast get 10% off their first month at BetterHelp.com/LockedOn. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, BetterHelp.com/LockedOn. All right, Raider Nation, here we go. Segment number 2 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Time to do a little bit of film study. Want to deep dive into a Chip Kelly offense, as he is the OC, obviously very successful at Ohio State, been around the game of football for a very long time, and we've seen Chip Kelly offenses from Oregon to Ohio State, Philadelphia, the 49ers, whatever the case may be. We know that Chip Kelly is a creative offensive mind. So we had an opportunity on Friday on my radio show, Unnecessary Roughness on Raider Nation Radio 920, to catch up with Jared Smith from Fox Sports Radio and BetMGM Network as well. And he has a YouTube out right now, and you can go check it out, a nice film breakdown. Chip Kelly film study. The Raiders offense will be drastically improved in 2025. That's what it's called. So definitely that caught my attention and thought that I'd get him on the show. We did, and I thought it was a fantastic conversation, giving you a little bit of a preview, a little bit of expectations of what to see, think of when you think of Chip Kelly and this offense. So we started off talking about how much improved the Raiders offense should be this season with Chip Kelly as their OC and them now having a true identity. Check it out.
I don't think any team outside of maybe Josh McDaniels replacing Van Pelt in New England, I don't think any team in the NFL had a bigger upgrade at the offensive play caller position than what the Raiders are going to experience this year. I mean, you just have to kind of wrap your head around how it all went down, right? So Getsy's the OC. Mid-year, they're terrible. I think they're 2-7. They fire Getsy. They fire Scandrella. They fire Craig, the O-line coach. Then they bring Scott Turner in, who was promoted to interim OC. He brings in his dad, Norv. Joe Philbin comes in to be the O-line coach. So, they went through, as bad as it was, they went through this entire renovation midseason, and ironically enough, the back half of the year, they actually had more success. The efficiency numbers, the early down success, which when you're grading an offense, I always look at early downs because third downs are very predictable. Usually they're either obvious passing or obvious running, and fourth downs, the sense of urgency is through the roof. So when you're analyzing a play caller and how good they are at keeping a defense off balance, you want to look at the early downs. Well, the Raiders back half of the year got better on early downs. And that, I think, just makes Getsy look worse because if Scott Turner can make the Raiders offense look average, imagine what Chip Kelly can do with Ashton Jeanty and Geno Smith. So now we get to the Chip Kelly part of the conversation. What he did down the stretch at Ohio State last year, and you give him credit for the whole year, I thought the running game with Judkins and Henderson was phenomenal. And don't get me wrong, Ohio State had better players than everyone, and yeah. I'm not, ignoring that point. But once you get down the stretch of the year, you're facing Oregon, you're facing Notre Dame, you're facing the elites of the elites, then it's more about scheme. It's more about being able to show something and do something else. And what Ohio State was able to do in the game against Oregon, create that big lead, and then show some stuff that was dummy stuff, like an end around to Jeremiah Smith that they then used 3 weeks later as a counter on that very important opening drive, right? Remember that game? Notre Dame had that huge drive to start the game, and they went up 7-0, and then Ohio State got it back, and they methodically drove it down the field, and in the red zone, 2nd and 8, money play inside the 10, they went to this Jeremiah Smith fake counter screen where he ran it against Oregon, but here against Notre Dame, they did the orbit motion and he was wide open for a touchdown. So, like, that's just the kind of galaxy brain stuff that he can bring to the table. And I think the running schemes, they're going to run a lot of duo, I think, which is when you take your, 2 offensive linemen and double team the nose tackle, and you do that with, both sides. So essentially 4 offensive linemen blocking 2 defensive tackles. That's a popular scheme that I think the Raiders are going to run a lot this year with Genty, and they've got a great offensive line to do it. But they've just got adults in the room now, Q, and I think the offense is going to look a hell of a lot different this year.
What do you think when you see Geno Smith now conducting it as the QB? We just had someone call in and say, how much better will this offense be with Geno Smith, and how much more effective will he be able to be?
He's so good indoors, and that's a big deal. I don't know. Last I checked, the Legion Stadium's an indoor stadium, correct? I think
Yes.
we're good. I think we're good there.
Yep.
They'll go outdoors to Denver. They'll go outdoors to Kansas City. But you can't stay indoors forever. Eventually, you're going to have to win a game outside, especially if you want to win if you want to win this division, you're probably going to have to win 2 or 3 games outside. But I just think the combination, like we talk about big 3 in basketball a lot. To me, your battery, is your head coach, your offensive and defensive play caller, and your quarterback. And to me, that's like unless that can be improved, and unless that is a strength of your team, you are not going to win games in the NFL. I don't care how good your skill position guys are. I don't care how good your defensive linemen are. If you don't have a head coach who understands how to manage the troops, if you don't have an offensive play caller that knows how to keep defenses off balance, and if you don't have a quarterback that can execute the game plan, you have no chance to succeed long-term in the NFL week to week. The Raiders did not have any of the 3 last year.
Right.
And I'm not saying they're a Super Bowl contender, but you go down the line and you now list those 3 guys. Super Bowl winner Pete Carroll, Geno Smith, accomplished quarterback that has had an unbelievable stint in Seattle and probably deserved a little bit of a better ending there, an offensive play caller that has been in the NFL and just had arguably one of the best runs an offensive play callers ever had through the national championship game and against some really good defenses. So I'm very high on the Raiders this year. I don't know what the ceiling really is, Q, but I definitely know the floor is significantly lower than it was last year.
Jared Smith, Fox Sports Radio, BetMGM Network, with us here on Raider Nation Radio 920, going through a little film study when it comes to Chip Kelly's offense. One thing that the Raiders couldn't do, well, they couldn't do a lot of things offensively last year, obviously, but play action pass didn't mean anything, right? It was nothing. They had no run game, so the fake didn't matter. So now when they execute the play action pass, how much more does that open up for Brock Bowers, Jacoby Myers, even Big Mike, who's back this year?
It's huge. To me with Genty, I don't know if you can really set the number high enough with how many carries he's going to get this year. Like, 250, 300, I feel like that's kind of the range I'm thinking. Health being, of course, the key factor here. If you can establish that, and I don't think they should be running it on early downs. I think they should be play actioning on early downs. I think Genty, to me, is a guy that he should have more carries. Like, if you go back at the end of the year, if we do another one of these segments next spring, summer, and we analyze Ashton Genty's rookie year, I can probably tell you how successful of a season it is for the Raiders just based on the first, second half splits for Genty carries. If Genty's getting more carries in the first half of games than the second half, I can pretty much tell you that the Raiders are going to be a losing team this year. But if it's opposite, if he's getting more carries in the second half, if he's getting more carries on third down than first and second down, I think the Raiders have a chance to win more games than they lose this year. Because to me, that correlates to third and short.
Yeah.
And you're either winning games or you're even with games. So I think how they use Genty is going to be huge this year. He's a weapon. He's going to get 250 touches. He's going to get 25 a game. But when are you giving him the ball? Are you giving him on 1st and 10, 2nd and 8, and you're trying to pound it into a heavy box? Or are you going to allow the defense to kind of settle into an early pass and then use him later on? So that's where 1st and 10 play action Bowers, 1st and 10 play hours, Beck, get these guys involved early in games, early downs, and then allow Genty to be the closer. That would be my preferred method for how the Raiders offense runs this year.
What do you think about Genty as a pass catcher out of the backfield? Do you expect Chip Kelly to implement that quite a bit?
Absolutely. I think there's a chance that Genty throws the ball this year. I think I don't know that for sure.
Right.
I think you're going to see him be put, like, if I was utilizing him, and he didn't have great receiving stats in college, and, from my understanding, he's a good, not great receiver, but you need to just use him as the queen on the chessboard. Like, you have someone that can be a Bijan Robinson. You have someone that can be a Christian McCaffrey, maybe not to the receiving extent, but you have a focal point of your offense. Now you can use that as a counter, which is why guys like Bowers and those other receivers are so important, because the focus is all going to be on Genty. And it goes back to kind of what Ohio State did with Jeremiah Smith. And I know they play different positions, but sometimes faking like you're giving it to Jeremiah Smith is actually the best thing you can do. So I think they're going to move him all over the field. I would utilize him in different formations. I'm fascinated to see if they put Bowers and Genty in like some kind of pony package together. But I think Chip Kelly's going to get really creative. At least I would if I had those two dudes on my team.
The one thing that frustrates me with the Raiders and their offense and what we see in the past couple of years, especially with like Trey Tucker on the roster, he's got speed, but he's only been used as a guy that he's going to stretch the field, and he's really been like a one-trick pony. Do you anticipate any like wide receiver screens and smokes it to him and have like guys like Jacoby Myers and Big Mike out in front blocking to try to get him some quick hitters and quick yards?
Yeah, I think I definitely expect Chip to be creative. I actually really like the offensive line. I thought the offensive line was good last year. And again, I think that's why they were able to improve so dramatically. Like, if you just go through, and I was going through it this morning, like if you go through when they made the firing from Getsy to Turner. So they did that in week 9. So they went from a 52% first down pass rate under Getsy to almost 60% under Turner. Their play action rate went up by 5% after Turner took over. They used less obvious passing formations, 11 personnel, 3 wide receivers, one running back, 1 tight end, 3 wide receivers. That's 11 personnel. That's an obvious passing formation. You don't want to throw out of those. Like, if you become very predictable when you just, 3 wide receivers, they're throwing the ball.
Yeah.
They have 2 tight ends, they're running the ball. Like, the best, most efficient offenses in the NFL are the ones that can run 2 tight ends on first down and throw out of it, and throw effectively out of it. That's how you win in the NFL. That's how you get 2nd and 6 instead of 2nd and 8. And then it's 3rd and 2 instead of 3rd and 6. 3rd and 2, I can run, I can throw.
Yeah.
Makes the defense very tough to scheme for. 3rd and 6, the defense knows you're throwing.
Right.
So that's where I think when you got rid of Getsy and went to Turner, all of a sudden some of the positive things of the Raiders offense, good offensive line, good tight end, they started to show up in other areas because they actually started running a modern normal offense instead of whatever the heck Getsy was doing. and now with Kelly, like, as much as I love Scott Turner, Chip Kelly, like, you can't quantify how big of an upgrade that is. Like, like Chip Kelly is, and I know there's a lot. When I posted that film study Q, I got a lot of pushback. We've seen Chip Kelly in the NFL. I know, as a head coach.
Right.
Now he gets to just call plays.
Mm-hmm.
And he only has to worry about the offense is doing this, and this is our plan of attack. Pete Carroll's got to worry about everything else. He'll chew his gum and have all the stress in the world on his shoulders, and Chip Kelly can just call plays. And I think, frankly, we just saw that role with Ryan Day at Ohio State. I think in that role, the NFL really doesn't know how good he can be. And frankly, what was he in the NFL 10 years ago?
Right.
Are you a different person than you were 10 years ago? You're probably a significantly better broadcaster now than you were 10 years ago.
I better be. I better be.
Yeah, I better be too. So I think anyone, and I know Raider Nation, you've had a rough few years.
Mm-hmm.
I think anyone that has the attitude of I'm waiting for the anvil to drop because Chip Kelly was a terrible head coach, and here he comes again, and it's a retread and this and that. Give this guy at least 2 months, 9 games, right? You fired Getsy after 9 games. Give him 9 games, and then call Q back and tell me how you feel about the offense. I can't speak for the defense. I can't speak for what's going on that side of the ball. That's not my expertise. I think they're going to be good, but I don't know if they're going to be great. I know they're going to be significantly better on offense, And I think the reason is Chip Kelly.
I thought that was a fantastic breakdown. That was about 12 minutes of our conversation. We probably had about 7 or 18 minutes, but obviously because of time limitations, right, I didn't want to have to bring the whole thing. I had to split it up into 2 different segments, so I didn't want to do that. But I could tell you throughout the course of that interview, I was fist pumping about 2 or 3 times. Just because the great detail, the great breakdown, right? Just the different expectations and why. It's not like it's going to be better, but here's the explanation why. I thought Jared did a fantastic job with that breakdown, so I've got to give him a lot of props. And again, that's something to get excited about, especially when you know practice is going to start coming up on Wednesday for the first day of the 2025 training camp for the silver and black. So you can always respond to that. You can respond to anything that we've been talking about. You can respond to something that we haven't talked about. It is all good. Let us know your thoughts. 707-654-4693. That's the Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line. Your calls and texts will close out the show. We'll do that next. Before we get to that, though, I do want to tell you another great sponsor here of the Locked On Raiders podcast, and that is Rugiet. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them, but if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Ready. Rugiet Ready is a next-gen prescription treatment designed to amplify arousal in the brain and boost blood flow. Unlike the usual pills that can take hours, Rugiet's 3-in-1 formula dissolves under your tongue and kicks in fast. On an average, about 15 minutes. Effects can last up to 36 hours, so you can stay confident and in control when the moment is right. Over 150,000 men have already made the switch. You can go. It's completely online. Rugiet connects you with a board-certified doctor and ships your treatment discreetly to your door. Obviously, that's a big deal as well. Customers' reviews, you can check them out on the site. They have so many great reviews. Everyone seems to be 100% satisfied, maybe even a little over 100% satisfied. So what do you need to do? Well, head over to that website that I mentioned too, Rugiet.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the promo code LockedOnNFL to get 15% off today. That's Rugiet, RUGIET.com/LockedOnNFL. Use the promo code LockedOnNFL for 15% off. Individual results may vary with prescription treatment. Compounded drugs are permitted to be prescribed under federal law but are not FDA approved and do not undergo FDA safety, effectiveness, or manufacturing review. Please visit the Rugiet website for full safety information. Here we go, Raider Nation. Segment number 3 of today's Locked On Raiders podcast. Your calls and texts straight off that Locked On Raider podcast voicemail line, 707-654-4693. Let's start off with a call from Proto, YTD. It's been a minute. He's calling to respond to the comments made on Friday. Feels different? Yes, but does it feel right? Here's Proto.
Hey, yo, kids, your boy Proto, YTD. Yes, I haven't called in a while, but of course, somebody asked a question that was really good, so I had to put in my 2 cents. Does it feel right? The answer for me is yes, it feels right. Does it feel perfect? Well, no, because perfect means Super Bowl. But it does feel like competency has returned. It does feel like Raider football is back. And at the very least, for the first 4 weeks, it feels like fans are going to return to Allegiant Stadium and actually hope that their team can win a game and not leave in embarrassment. So, if more people show up at Allegiant Stadium, that means the team is doing well. And right now, it feels like the team is going to do well enough for fans to keep showing up. And after what we had last year, honestly, that's the best that I could hope for. That when I turn the TV on and watch the Raiders game, I am going to see a football team that's functioning like a football team. And for that, I say yes.
Proto, thanks for the call. Short but sweet. It does feel right. Feels like this team is going to give Raider Nation something to be proud of, right? Health is going to be a big key. We talked about Christian Wilkins in segment number 1 of the show. Picking up the scheme offensively will also be another big key, but it does. It feels right. And another reason why I feel like it feels right is because of the head coach, Pete Carroll, because he has the proof of concept. I can't remember who said it, but someone called into my radio show, and I noted this on Friday as well, and they said straight up that Antonio Pierce knew what he wanted. He just didn't know how to get it. Pete Carroll knows what he wants, and he also knows how to get it. That is the reason why you have more confidence. At least I have more confidence in Pete Carroll to get it done. Just already what we've seen so far, it just seems like things feel right? And they make sense, right? It's the rhyme and reason is there. So it makes you feel good about the product moving forward. But look, in 2 days, right? Wednesday's the first day of practice. That's when they'll start putting the pieces together, and we'll actually see what's different and what's right. about this team. Proto, thanks so much for the call. Appreciate you. Up next, got a text from Connor in Florida. Hey, Q, it's Connor from Florida again. Don't really have any takes this time, but a question. I had to look this up just to make sure I was right. By the way, in the history of the NFL, no division has ever had all 4 teams in the playoffs. But do you think the AFC West could be the first? Nothing too serious, however. I think would be really cool if it happened this year, as it could show the rest of the league why we're the toughest division to play in right now. Kind of short, but figured this was a nice change of pace. Love the show. Appreciate you. Rest of the Raiders, squad, crew, and as always, just win, baby. Raiders. That's Connor in Florida. Thanks for the text. And yeah, I don't think that that's going to happen. I don't think that there's going to be a team or a division where they put all 4 teams in the playoffs. I just don't see that, even though, if the Raiders were to be a lot better like we all expect them to be, maybe they could challenge, and maybe the AFC West could be the first to do it. I just feel like a team's going to take a step back. You know what I mean? If the Raiders take that step forward, who are they replacing? Do the Broncos take a step back or the Chargers? My gut feeling would tell me it's the Chargers, only because I think the Broncos defense is a lot better even this going into this year as opposed to last year, and it was really stinking good last year. So I feel like if any team's going to take a slight step back, it would be the Chargers as opposed to the Broncos. But then again, the Broncos have Bo Nix as a second-year quarterback. Does he take a step forward? Does he take a step back? So, I mean, I guess there's plenty of ways to look at, rhyme and reason, and obviously injury also plays another factor. But yeah, I feel like when we start talking about these really good divisions, remember we talked about the AFC North at one time. It was really strong. Also, we're looking at the NFC North as a strong one. Hell, we could look at the NFC East this year, except for the Giants, right? We could see 3 teams represented this year. So I just feel like that there's always going to be a team that's kind of the weak link in the division, and they won't make the playoffs. Like there's one team that won't make the playoffs. So I'd love to see the Raiders represented, obviously in the playoffs in 2025. But to me, that would mean that either the Chargers or the Broncos took a step back. Thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. Up next, got a call from Rio in the IE, calling to talk about Jacoby Myers not being ranked in the top 10 as far as wide receivers go. That was a ranking that ESPN's Jeremy Fowler put out when he talked to executives, scouts, and coaches, and how some in Raider Nation were upset by that. Here's Rio in the IE.
Q! What up, big dog? It's Rio again from the IE. Anyway, man, I was listening to your radio station, Necessary Roughness. Shout out to you and everything you do. You don't just do Locked On, but you do a bunch of whole other things. But, man, these Raider goggles, silver and black goggles we be wearing, I heard some guy call in and was giving you guff about Jacoby Myers not being in the top 10 amongst wide receivers. And I'm with you. I love Jacoby. Great player, great leadership. But, I mean, amongst other NFL wide receivers, I said I got to agree with you. I don't put him up there yet. And nothing bad on Kobe, but we need to see more out of them. I see a lot of this outrage of these rankings came out for wide receivers, and they ranked the Raider wide receivers in the 20-something, later 20s, and the nation's in an uproar. And I'm trying to understand why, when we only have Jacoby Myers and Brock Bowers. We're still sitting here on if Tucker can get it together, we're hoping our two draft picks, Beck and Thornton, work out. But, I mean, does that really give it reason for us to be considered top anything in the NFL as far as wide receiving core? We're a young team. We believe in Pete, but I think the nation needs to chill a little bit and realize that these are young guys. But, I mean, I don't know. What are your thoughts? Am I being too harsh? Have the losing seasons caught up to me? But let me know what you think as far as all this pressure that's being put on our young wide receivers. Anyway, take care, Q. Talk to you later. Peace out.
Rio, thanks so much for the call. I appreciate you. I'm with you. Look, I'm a big Jacoby Myers guy. I think everyone knows that. I've rooted for the dude. He's a really good guy in general. He comes from a good family. His dad is A1 since day one. I get a chance to catch up with him at the Torch sometimes at Allegiant Stadium. So I know a lot about Jacoby Myers. I know also that the top 10 ranking by ESPN's Jeremy Fowler is not going to bother him, right? He's not going to worry about it. Like if anyone asks him anything about it, or do you even care about that kind of stuff, he's so chill that he probably won't. Now, he might use that as fuel, like, okay, they don't think I'm a top 10 wide receiver. Okay, well, let me go ahead and keep putting work in, right? And just for S's and giggles, last year he came in number 20th. That's where he was as far as just rankings as yards go in the NFL. So he was just over 1,000 yards, which was good for 20th. And again, I think that it just kind of is what it is. There's so many really good wide receivers in the National Football League. Narrowing it down to a top 10 is very difficult, and especially putting a guy in the top 10 off of a team that only won 4 games, right? And he barely got over 1,000 yards, and I think he had, 4 touchdowns in 2024? I can't remember the exact number, 4 or 5, one of the two. I think it was 4. But you get the point. As far as the wide receiver room goes, you're absolutely right about that. Only thing that we know about the wide receiver room is Jacoby Myers. Everyone else is kind of up in the air. You know, right? Trey Tucker, not 100% sure what role he's going to play. Dante Thornton Jr., rookie. Jack Besh, rookie, right? I mean, there's a lot of unknown. That was my thing. We were on the Raiders Squad show with Chantel Chan and Lincoln Kennedy, and she asked about the wide receiver room, and she said, how would you describe it? And I said, unproven. Right? Big unknown. We don't know. I know what Jacoby Myers brings to the table, but when you have Brock Bowers as your number 1 target and he's a tight end, you can't say that, well, he's a wide receiver. I mean, obviously he does wide receiver type things. You know, maybe you could say he's a wide receiver in a tight end's body, but he's a tight end. So he's in the tight end room. As far as the wide receiver room alone, I think it's a big question, and that's something that we'll start to see how it comes together, who steps up and fills a void for the wide receivers. Do they need to go out and go get a veteran wide receiver? Right now, I think they're good with, hey, let's test out the young guys and see where they get us. But, you know, halfway through training camp, they might decide, yeah, this ain't going to cut it. We need to go out and get a veteran wide receiver. But, yeah, it's very unproven as far as I'm concerned outside of Jacoby Myers. Thanks so much for the call. I do appreciate you. Other thing about Jacoby Myers and his family, talking to his dad, he was like, yeah, man, you're my second favorite Myers outside of my son Jacoby, but they obviously spell it a little bit different. I said, yeah, I mean, you know, so that's me and Jacoby's joke in the locker room. Yeah, you're the other Myers, you're the brother with the extra E. I couldn't afford the extra E, you got that. So that's always our little joke that we have when we see each other in the locker room. Like I said, Jacoby is an A1 dude, and I know why, because he comes from a great place. His pops is fantastic. I asked Jacoby about his dad all the time. He's like, man, he's just chill. And I was like, yeah, just like you. Just chill. That's exactly who they are. But again, thanks for the call. Up next, got a text from 60s Era Raider. Just got time for a couple more. AQ, 60s Era Raider in the 603. It's been a minute, but your podcast about the Raiders no longer being unserious hits home with me. Perhaps that's why after 37 years in New Hampshire, I finally got a silver and black New Hampshire license plate. It's been available for all of my time here in the 603 after living in Alameda for most of the 80s. I received my silver and black newspaper faithfully for all these years. Now it just feels different. I think with a strong running game and defense combined with Geno's deep ball capabilities, we're now a serious team again. Pete Carroll and John Spytek have made us relevant again. Keep doing what you're doing, Q. And thanks for thanks for that. Can't wait for the season to begin. Sorry for the long text, but I'm jacked and pumped. To quote Peep. That's 60s Era Raider there with the text. How can you not be jacked and pumped like Pete Carroll says, right? How could you not be, right? This is exciting. One, we wait for so long for football to come back. We say it's so long, but it goes by so quickly, and now it's here. Like, it's literally this week, right? I mean, the veterans report to camp tomorrow. We'll talk to Pete Carroll tomorrow, and then boom, they'll be out there on the practice field bright and early on Wednesday, 8:30 in the morning is when the first practice gets underway. So yeah, man, it's here. We made it, and yeah, it's full throttle moving forward. So yeah, you can't help but be jacked and pumped. And I do feel like that they're operating as a serious organization now, and I think that that's important, right? Because when you look back, like you said, you know, after 37 years in New Hampshire, you decided you're finally going to get a silver and black New Hampshire license plate. Right. I mean, because, again, I think that you could see that something is different. And like I said, does it feel different? Yes. Does it feel right? Yeah, it does. And that's why they start going from being the unserious team to being serious. So thanks so much for the text. Definitely appreciate you. Just got time for a couple more. We'll get a call from Cheese Grater Raider calling to talk about a call that we had last week about touchdown Tommy Malott, and has a bone to pick with the comparisons that he's getting. He'll tell you why. Here's Cheese Grater Raider. Cheese Grater, thanks for the call, my man. And I'm not sure exactly who you're talking about. The Raiders drafted some years ago. I think maybe you're talking about Lynn Bowden, but I'm not sure. And I don't remember what comparisons he got. I just remember John Gruden was really pumped up about him, calling him his Joker, his X Factor. He was going to do all kind of different things with him, you know, line him up here, line him up there. He was going to be that guy, and he never played for the team, and he got traded to Miami, and I think he got released. He really hasn't done anything in the National Football League. But, yeah, he was really the X Factor for John Gruden. I know he was real pumped up about him. So I think that might be who you're talking about, but I'm not 100% sure. As far as Tommy Malott and the Julian Edelman comparisons, And I get it when people compare people and you say, you'll compare them by what they look like. Or like you mentioned, though, they're comparing them by race. And it's something Max Crosby says all the time when people say that, well, you remind me of Ted Hendricks. And Max just laughs and was like, of course, right? Of course, he's the white edge rusher, right? Of course, I got to remind you of him. I think it's just natural that people do that. I don't think it's to be... I don't know. I can't answer for everyone. I just think that it's something that naturally happens, some kind of comparison. I can only say for me why I will, there's certain people that I'll look at that, they could look like me and I can draw inspiration because then I could say, well, that person that looks like me is doing it. I feel like I say about Stuart Scott all the time, the late, great Stuart Scott. Watching him gave me motivation to believe that I can do that too. Right. So not that I'm ever going to compare myself to Stu Scott because there's only one of him. But that's why I would, draw to someone like that. And maybe that's the same for others when they give comparisons. And I say all that to say Tommy Millott himself has said that Julian Edelman was his favorite player growing up. Julian Edelman is who he compared himself to. So it's not like I said, oh, Julian Edelman, Tommy Millott, they're both white guys that were quarterbacks and then they turned wide receiver. That's who Tommy Millott, when he got drafted, Touchdown Tommy got drafted, we did so many deep dives on him, and everybody that we talked to that covered him in school at Montana State said, oh yeah, Julian Edelman is his guy, right? From punt returns to being could be a wide receiver, converted into a wide receiver. Obviously he's a quarterback. Like, he put those comparisons on himself. And again, that's why I go back to sometimes when you see someone that looks like you and does things that you do, or you do things that they do, that's when you draw that natural comparison. He did that. I didn't give him the Julian Edelman tag. I just said he has an opportunity to be Julian Edelman-like because that's what he said. And so that's obviously what he's trying to do. So I don't know if the bone that you have to pick is with me. I don't know if the bone you have to pick is with just others in general. Maybe it's a collective. I don't know. But that's where the Julian Edelman came from, was actually him. He's the guy who said that that's who he wanted to be like, and that's who he was trying to kind of model his game after. And again, sometimes that happens. People will do that. Just like Kobe Bryant came out modeling his game after Michael Jordan. Right? I mean, Kobe Bryant did every single thing that MJ did, right? If you look at my wall here, if you're watching on YouTube, I don't know if you can see it, but there's MJ, and right underneath him is Kobe, right? I mean, that's what they do, right? I mean, they didn't, but Kobe modeled everything after MJ, and that was his thing. That was his guy he looked up to when he was coming up. So I don't know if that answers the question. I don't know if that satisfies the answer. I don't know. But that's where the whole Julian Edelman came from. It wasn't like, well, Touchdown Tommy, who can we think of? Who's a white guy that was a quarterback? You know what I mean? Like that's not where that came from. So hopefully that answers it, maybe clears it up a little bit. But thanks for the call. As always, do appreciate you. And then we'll close out with a text from Rum Runner in the 804. It says, Q, now that Wilkins is on the PUP list, can we all please just move on and see who the next man up is? I hate seeing anyone injured. I know that his injury is an unfortunate situation, but my unpopular opinion is that he will not play a snap for us. And what's worse, we paid him a lot of money to not play. I'm so optimistic about this team and want to see the positivity continue. Move Tyree Wilson over, work the rookies, and just win, baby. Thanks as always for the best Raider content out there. Raiders. Thanks so much for the text. I appreciate you. I think he'll play. I think the plan is that he'll play. I just couldn't tell you when he's going to play. Right. I think that the reality is that we all were going to look at who's the next man up. And that's why I detailed it in segment number 1. Who is the next man up? You want to have Christian Wilkins because he, like you said, they did pay him a lot of money. You want to make sure that money pays off at least the best of its ability. Right. And so hopefully he gets back out there. I know for a fact that he was trying to get back out there at the end of the season last year. I mean, like, he was actually ready to go. He was pushing himself, and the season was out of whack. So they just shut him down. That might have been the reason why he, took a step back. Maybe he was pushing himself too hard. I'm not 100% sure. I know he wants to play. So we'll see what happens. And obviously it'd be a great feather in the cap if the Raiders can get him out there sooner rather than later. But you're absolutely right. When a guy goes down, it's always about the next man up. And at least for the Raiders, as I rolled out in segment number 1, they do have a lot of depth as far as that goes. So we'll see if and when he returns. And hopefully you're not correct. Not that I want you to be wrong about anything, but if he doesn't play a snap, that would be an all-time fail as far as I'm concerned. But thanks for the text. Definitely appreciate you. That's going to do it for today's show. Tomorrow, of course, we'll have an opportunity to catch up with head coach Pete Carroll over at the Intermountain Health Performance Center. We've got the Raiders Squad Show. This week is supposed to be Monday and Wednesday. Big Lincoln's going to be traveling on Thursday, so we're going to do Monday and Wednesday. Chantel Chan, Lincoln Kennedy, and myself, 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. And, I saw a couple comments like, why is this running at the same time as the Locked On Raiders podcast running? That's a live stream. It's 1 hour long, 1 hour strong. It's live. So the podcast, obviously, you can catch any time of the day, whenever you want to, whenever it's convenient for you. So maybe you're listening to it ahead of the live stream. Maybe you're listening to it after. Whatever the case may be, it's always going to be there. The Raider Squad Show is just a live show. So that's why we do it when we do it, and try to get many people locked into a certain routine. So eventually, at some point, we're going to get these days so you can have that 2 time a week routine. So thanks so much for that. But like I said, 7:30 a.m. Pacific time, we'll be back at it this morning. Chantel Chan, Lincoln Kennedy, and myself. So until tomorrow, Raider Nation, take care of yourself, take care of your family, love on your family. Most importantly, as always, just win, baby.